Everything on Trace feels the house when I'm talking to Mike, so I can see. Cool. Yeah, it is.
I didn't hear it. I heard you at first, but I don't hear you. I heard you at the beginning, but I don't hear you now.
You haven't got the tree. His technology meeting, you know, he's on.
He's on.
Are your speakers turned up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak one more. Yeah, speak one more time. Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. That's so long. She lost your internet connection.
Okay.
Sound.
Yep.
Should be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Since you lost connection.
Can I see one of those handhelds?
I'm sorry?
One of those handheld mics?
Some really informative discussions. Nicole, would you please do roll call?
Good morning. Peter Wilson,
Present.
Ben Bates, Ben Calhoun, Chris Armstrong.
Here.
Brian Clark.
Here.
Phyllis Craig Taylor, Kevin Dick, Hayes Framing, David Goss,
Here.
Daniel Maloney,
Here.
Ruthie Hamilton, Terry Parker, Arquita Howard, Stephen Fallon, Carly Lohan, Secretary Dear Martin. I'm here for her. Mark McIntyre.
Here.
Ashley McLeod. Trish Murphy. Here. Bob Hill.
Present.
Cheryl Query. Greg Richardson. Dan Segovia.
Sebastian, that's like Rox.
She's done.
Jason Stibble.
Here.
Glenn Skinner. Justin Foskey.
Here.
John Suzoka. Brian Turner. Whit Patel.
Here.
Alan Moore. John White.
All right, if we have any members who've joined us online, would you please unmute your microphone and let your presence be known, please?
Hey there, this is Carly Lohan with the Southeastern Wind Coalition.
Hi, it's Dave Goss.
We will pick those members up online.
Everyone.
All right, our meeting is being recorded and streamed live, so please be mindful of comments that may be picked up by microphones located throughout the room. We also ask that you silence your cell phones, and if you are participating virtually, please mute your microphone. North Carolina open meeting law requires that an ethics statement be read at the start of every meeting in accordance with the state government's Ethics Act. It is the duty of every task force member to avoid both conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts. If any member has any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to matters coming before the task force today, please identify it at this time. Please also identify any conflict that arises with respect to any matter discussed during the meeting so that it can be evaluated to ensure that any inappropriate participation is avoided. At this time, I'm going to ask staff if you would please introduce yourselves. We'll start over here with Susan Fleetwood.
Susan Fleetwood with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. I'm Emily Roach with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Elizabeth Field with the North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Hey, John Horton, North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Ronald Wesley, North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Trace via Commerce.
Nicole Williams, Commerce.
Alexander Commerce.
All right. And did we get everybody? Peter.
Peter Ledford, Governor's Office.
Bailey Repton, Governor's Office.
With that person.
Morning, Jennifer Grant, Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce. Next, Jack Monroe, Commerce. Your city show you lead on.
All right, if we have any guests in the room who have not been acknowledged, if you would please introduce yourself. All right, wonderful. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We do appreciate you being here and supporting our efforts. I'd like to first start by thanking all the task force members who organized and participated in yesterday's school visit at Wake STEM Early College High School. Special thanks to Emily Roach, who coordinated and emceed yesterday's activities. Thank you, Emily. Along with Gina, yes. Also thanks to Jen Banks, Perry Harker, Mark McIntyre, Jennifer Munt, and of course, Gina Renfrew, who contributed greatly to yesterday's very successful engagement. Task force members were joined by Governor Cooper to work with the entire freshman class of Wake STEM to build working mini wind turbines. You've probably seen some of the pictures on news outlets and social media. We had a robust discussion of the many career opportunities available in offshore wind. Wake STEM Early College High School is dedicated to increasing diversity in STEM fields. 3/4 of the freshman class were first-generation college students at Wake STEM. They're able to take classes at NC State while also completing their standard high school requirements, helping to make college more accessible and affordable. Secretary Sanders was among the guests yesterday, along with Governor Cooper. I think the two people I saw most picked up by the camera, of course, would have been Secretary Sanders and Governor Cooper. It was a great visit and the students were very engaged and very enthusiastic about having everyone there. So thank you to everyone who came out and participated in that. It's always a great time when we get to go to visit the schools and engage with the children, with the students, and answer some of their questions and also introduce them to some of the work that we're doing. So thank you again for your participation yesterday. Just a reminder, don't forget our Offshore Wind events calendar is live on the Commerce website. And if you have items of interest to the North Carolina Offshore Wind community, please contact Jenny Winfro. She's the staff liaison for outreach and engagement, and she'll be happy to work with you on including appropriate information. Also, noting again, reach out to Gina if your offshore wind supply chain business would like to be featured in our monthly offshore wind newsletter. And with that, we are going to turn it over to Jennifer Munt, our clean energy report. Jennifer is the Assistant Secretary of Clean Energy for NC Commerce.
Morning, everybody. Every new venue requires new learning and so all this goal. Madam Chair, while we're waiting, if you want to just take a minute and allow folks, we have you playing folks on maintenance and so on, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, our online guests, if you have questions at any time throughout the meeting, please type your questions into the comments area.
Can everybody hear me okay?
We need to hear you a little louder.
Stay close. You don't hear me, stay online. Okay. Morning, everybody. So Jennifer Munt, this is.
Online can't hear you.
So this slide's gonna look familiar with some different pictures from when we met last quarter. I want to ask if you all remember our achievement days. That we know that the offshore wind industry is in a really exciting period right now. We're going to dive into what's been going on commercially and from the policy part from the state federal level. But I want to just remind everybody, offshore wind is a reality in the United States today. This industry is going to if, but how fast. Here, a picture on the bottom left of the screen is Dominion Energy's Charybdis wind turbine installation vessel, the first that compliant vessel that has been manufactured in Texas that just got put into the water. It's going to be deployed probably within this calendar year and allow for installation of wind turbine components, which will allow us to move away from European other vessels to move our equipment. Also, on the right-hand side of the page, we talked about last time we met that the South Fork Wind Project off the coast of Long Island, New York, was in the middle of its installation since we met last. Governor Cooper, alongside Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, lifted the ceremonial switch, indicating that the project is completed and it's now producing power for about 30,000 Long Islanders every day. So snaps, this is happening. This is real. Offshore wind is here and it's flourishing, and we still have more to do. And North Carolina has a lot of opportunity to capture in this space. As you recall, North Carolina and Commerce typically are working on every front to help make this opportunity a reality here for the state. And You, as members of this task force, and your communities, your organizations are all helping us make that opportunity a reality. So with that, this is just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about here this morning. Another update coming out of the Dominion Seagull project, pictured here on the slide, is was taken just last week from, pardon me, this a little bit better for y'all. Y'all remember in February, John Larson from Dominion shared an update and activities surrounding the seat now that goes with the Channel project. These are transition pieces, the pieces that go between the foundations and the towers. And these are being delivered from Holborn, Denmark, but coming across the Atlantic Ocean right now on Route 10 to West Virginia. These are 90-foot, 20 feet, and 25 feet in diameter, and they weigh each between 540 and 570 tons. So now they are coming across the Atlantic and getting ready to be installed this spring with the Seagull project. So, anyway, got a lot of pictures of the various activities that are happening. So, okay. So let's talk about the good news in the market, and I've lost all my transition team, I don't know what happens. So the last 5 minutes, kind of mean this tech team, I lost all my transition, the animations, so things are coming up. Appreciate your grace, hold on 1 second. This is the power. I'm sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. I had these great animations to follow. So, but apparently tech's not working in my favor. So I want to share some good news updates with y'all. These are all within the past couple of weeks. And even if I had waited 2 more days from when I created this slide deck to today, I'm sure there would be even more updates to provide. What I would want to share is that, CNN reported at the end or middle of last month that the administration recently approved enough projects to get us 10 gigawatts of power to tap 10 gigawatts of offshore wind power when we 1 million homes over the next few years. Bowen is planning a whole 4 lease auctions by the end of this calendar year, including those in the Gulf of Maine, off the coast of Oregon. San Luis was just announced yesterday, and in Central Atlantic, as well as the Gulf of Mexico. This is a quote. The fact that these projects that were in so much trouble or bid in some places around the country and accepted at higher prices is a positive sign for the industry. But it also means that electricity companies will initially come at a higher cost given supply chain constraints and high interest rates and all of those global economic issues that I've articulated. Another article that just came out of the state, or another research that came out of the state of Rhode Island. An associate professor in the U.S. Coast Guard Academy conducted a study about whether or not the offshore wind project off the coast of Block Island that has been in operation for about 8 years now is impacting fish rates. And so this professor at the Coast Guard Academy surveyed about 200 recreational anglers about the Block Island Wind Farm, which is the nation's first offshore wind project, and found that overall the regional positive effect of the project on recreational fish rates. She said that those that were surveyed believe that the turbines will improve fishing. And the respondents indicated that the foundations and the towers served as artificial reefs that were increasing marine life and opportunities for fishing in that environment. And then on the supply chain front, a lot of folks are aware that in February, US Fourth Rings announced that it is planning to make a $700 million investment somewhere on the East Coast to serve the offshore industry by constructing a tower and crane facility. We don't know where that's gonna go. There are 13 states on the East Coast that are all interested in this opportunity. This facility will produce towers, and cylinders that will be up to 40 feet in diameter and also produce the force components that are required in other industries. According to the board frame president, this investment is substantial, serving the whole market, and it was spurred by their confidence in the medium and long-term proposals of the U.S. market, which is in its early phases and need for global supply chain and pipeline of projects to advance. These facilities will enable developers and alliances to have predictable costs and reliable supply of components will be predictable and reliable and certainty, a lot of space for engines. Equally important, the investment will result in environmental benefits to the production, significant carbon pollution, by otherwise shipping these huge components overseas from all of it for a shared on the transition pieces moving from Denmark to the US, putting those on vessels to cross the ocean multiple times. It's a lot of diesel and it's a lot. I want to talk a little bit about the not so good news. 2 weeks ago, GE Vernova, which is the spin-off for renewables of the GE company, they made an announcement, or I should say GE is one of the three original equipment manufacturers in the offshore wind space. They make turbines, they make cells and blades. They announced that they were canceling their plans to manufacture an 18 megawatt turbine. They currently manufacture 15 to 16 megawatt turbines. And this announcement had a knock-on effect of the state of New York canceling provisionally awarded contracts to 3 developers for projects off of the state's coast. Because those 3 projects that they were provisionally awarded contemplated utilizing those 18 megawatt turbines. Since those turbines will not exist, state of New York and all the due diligence determined that those contracts did not be fulfilled, and so they canceled them. But they've already gone ahead and committed to rebidding the development of up to 4 those projects, which would constitute about 4 gigawatts of power. So we'll see what happens to that. I will note that just 2 business days later, Governor Kathy Hochul of New York issued a 10-point action plan for the state's clean energy industry, including a request for information for an upcoming 5th offshore wind solicitation. And according to the press release announcing this 10-point plan, the RFI will inform the development of that solicitation, as well as the design of a $300 million request for proposals that focus on major offshore wind component supply chain investments. And so they're trying to make some lemonade out of the lemons that GE Vernova so on 2 weeks ago. And then lastly, I would note last week that Climate Wire and Union News reported that wind energy deployment in the US lags pretty much every other clean energy sector or clean energy technology deployment. And it flags where the administration thought that it would follow the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. There has been less wind added to the grid over the past year than had been deployed under the Trump administration, in spite of the president's financial administrative support for the statute. And those are several comments. So, like last quarter, it's a mixed bag on offshore wind, but I would submit to you that I think the overall trajectory is positive. Now, here's where the slides get messy because they were intended to come in sequence. So, some federal activities. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which is responsible for all agricultural shelf-related activities, was pretty busy this past quarter. And actually, we've been pretty busy over this past week. last week at the International Partnering Forum for Offshore Women that was held in New Orleans, where about 3,400 people gathered to talk offshore wind, the industry, supply chain, workforce, policy, everything under the sun. Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, announced that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is they announced a 5-year renewable energy leasing plan that contemplates up to 12 options between now and 2028. She said that offshore wind, providing an offshore wind leasing schedule will provide predictability to help developers and communities plan ahead and provide the confidence needed to continue building a supply chain and manufacturing investments and building off those that are happened. Boeing will continue this work through the convening its various intergovernmental agency task forces, which include representatives from state, federal, local, and tribal organization or tribal entities to coordinate those themselves, support ongoing stakeholder engagement on broader offshore wind integration. Speaking of, and you can see just a little bit of the timeline that's hiding in the middle of the page where it's 2024, that's the first tranche of the leasing schedule. You'll recall that Central Atlantic is up first in the schedule. And I shared with y'all at our last meeting that issued the persona notice for Central Atlantic and Salem Sutter Club. They solicited public comments for 2 months. Commerce submitted a comment about Boeing, including requirements for transparency, as it pertains to bidding credits. And as I shared with y'all before, areas off North Carolina coast are not being contemplated in Central Atlantic land lease options later this year. The only areas that are going to be up for lease from those are A and C in Oregon. And then finally, also last week, Secretary Haaland announced that Boeing issued their final rules to modernize the regulations pertaining to offshore wind project development. This was 15 years in the making ever, because Boeing issued their first rules back in the mid-early aughts, and they've been working with us with regulations ever since. And through the implementation of those rules, they've been developers and other folks that some of the things that they had on the books were impeding development, or adding additional layers of ambiguity or red tape to the process. And so they went back to the drawing board a little over a year ago. They issued proposed rules to the tune of about 200 and so pages, solicited feedback and comments on them, and we was finalized last week. It's estimated that the streamlined suite of regulations are expected to result in the cost savings of almost $2 billion to the industry over the next 20 years. So in addition to efficiency and deployment, will also see hopefully cost savings that can be translated to ratepayers. Some other federal activities, and again, I regret that you're missing some of these graphics that I yes. Well, give me 2 seconds, grace, because pictures don't work, you know. Thank you. Yeah, okay. I think the next slide is where we go. There you go. If you stop right there. Sometimes technology is on your side, especially when you have amazing colleagues who work for both. I appreciate all the things they. Okay. So many agencies are going to stand up. In March, the Department of Energy and its national labs, the National Renewable Energy Lab and the Pacific Northwest National Lab, co-released the Atlantic Offshore Wind Transmission Study, a culmination of almost 2 years of work that was commended by the Department of Energy. The study identifies and compares different transmission strategies for enabling offshore wind deployment along the U.S. Atlantic coast from Maine to South Carolina. The study contemplated multiple pathways to enable deployment through coordinated transmission solutions in the near term, through 2030, and longer term, through 2050. Through various combinations of supply and demand, while supporting grid reliability and resilience, as well as cargo services. The study both gaps and various analyses that have been done prior by providing multi-regional planning for factors that evaluate offshore wind generation development and planning with transmission planning. It also incorporates environmental ocean codes and citing fair considerations into defining those offshore transmission grounds. It also compared multi-regional transmission topologies, some of which are indicated in this picture, as well as their associated costs and benefits. In addition, it also analyzed reliability impacts from a multi-regional perspective, something that had not been done before, considering across these various states, there are many ISOs, LTOs, and independent grid operators that all have to kind of work together to identify what's the best approach for ensuring reliability while there are these predictable and yet intermittent energy resources. Oh, sorry, Trace, thank you. And then also during IPF last week, there were so many announcements that were coming out as fast and furious. The Department of Energy's Wind Energy Technology Office released their Pathways to Commercial Liftoff report for offshore wind, describing how the sector is adapting to the challenges and is poised to progress with the plan to deploy 100 gigawatts by 2050. The report finds that the sector is poised for liftoff, enabled by the continuing efforts to adapt to the market challenges that it's been facing for the past year. Projects that move forward over the next several years will lay the foundation for specific long-term prioritization, deployment, and economic benefits. There is a clear path to scale the industry with over 50 gigawatts worth of US seabed already leased by eligible developers, with more planned, as indicated in a 5-year renewable energy leasing schedule that was released, and early project deployment already advancing. In order to deliver over 100 gigawatts by mid-century, DOE anticipates that industry will have to maintain a steady pace between 4 and 5 gigawatts of deployment in a year. It requires a domestic supply chain underpinning all of that. While costs have been increasing over the past few years, DOE anticipates to build a path for reductions built forward, including LCO lease below 100 megawatts for $100 per megawatt hour in 2020, $24 for fixed bottom projects by the end of 2030. I will leave it at that. Great, Trees, thank you. Also, our best friends at the IRS, who I hope everybody sent some information to. They released some interesting information on some this one. They issued guidance for energy communities and associated bonus credits that are available under the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is important because it's to offer because it helps developers and entrepreneurs, investors understand what is defined as an energy community for the production investment tax credits that are paid for the IRA. Amidst the increased investment tax credit by up to 10% for those projects that are eligible. And in order to qualify, a project has to be located in an energy community, meaning a brownfield site, a certain metropolitan statistical area, and non-MSA areas based on unemployment rates, census tracts will let the coal mine might have closed after a certain year, over coal-fired electric generating plants will retire after 2009, and their adjacent census tracts. So it's a pretty wide workshed or application set as well. For offshore wind specifically, those projects qualify if the interconnection points lie and or this operations and maintenance of designs and interconnection as defined by the project's data or supervisory control and data acquisition system. And so this update allows investments for offshore wind, particularly ports investments, to qualify. energy community, but it's not. It's 10%, so I think it's not more than the value, so cost. Cheers. Or, data, here we go. State activities, all up here, a whole here. So I said I mentioned before, Central Atlantic Waters proceeding without North Carolina, having areas being considered least. I'm gonna talk about Central Atlantic 2.0. Since last August, when Bowen announced that North Carolina would not be included in the Central Atlantic lease effort, we within the administration have been working diligently with Bowen and Department of Interior to make sure that North Carolina has wind energy areas contemplated in the center. And so over these past months, included hosting a panel of leaders from Interior, Bowen, and Atmospheric Administration, several members of this task force, and along with Governor Cooper and other state leaders to discuss what we're doing to make those opportunities presented by Offshore wind a reality for Carolina community. And the result of that meeting, Secretary Holland and Bowen Director Klein, was a commitment to work with North Carolina to identify the youth areas necessary to help North Carolina achieve our 80 gigawatt by 2040. So that's amazing. And we see the fruits of that effort when the announcement of Central Atlantic 2 is and we are already working to start taking public service off of our entire coast to make it happen. Great. There we go. So a couple other activities to share. Spring for offshore wind is conference season. Last one, I was fortunate enough to travel to Bilbao, Spain, in the Basque region to attend Wind Europe 2021. So the third year in a row that North Carolina has had presidents of the International Wind Conference. This year, I was one of more than 12,000 participants in attendance. And this picture might shows one of the 2 exhibit halls that were devoted to more than 500 exhibitors on site, manufacturers, companies, industry, surveyors, and engineering firms, making everything from old fasteners to giant steel systems. So, but thank you. I was able to attend, I personally held over a dozen meetings with companies and organizations. I attended several informative sessions, including one that featured educators and industry leaders who were discussing the need for developing a workforce talent, something we've all been talking about here in North Carolina. Thank you. And then I also, and another interesting panel that I listened in on, featured experts who shared studies and real world examples of how they were gaining social acceptance for large scale clean energy projects. And so I'm happy to share with Bill and the additional details about that. But these are some really important topics that we are wrestling with here and that I felt were important for us to understand and learn from the experience and other nations and benefits for us to be able to move forward. And again, just last week, Marquita, John and I, and a couple of our featured guests who will present here with us in a little bit, we were able to attend the International Partnering Forum for Offshore Wind and Environments. With more than, like I mentioned before, with about 3,500 people representing more than 30 countries, there were meetings over 4 days. And workshops, information sessions pictured here on a table with colleagues from our Smart Power Partnership representing Maryland and Virginia, as well as Delaware, discussing our collaborative efforts to bring the industry supply chain to our region. Thank you. We also got to take some site visits while we were in town. Marquita and I were able to join our friends from Southeastern Wind Coalition on a tour of both wind technologies demonstration and or their demonstration facility and their headquarters in the Wayne Meadows area. As you might remember from our last meeting, Ray Fisher joined us for our supply chain business panel, and Jews and GWT is expanding into North Carolina, so we wanted to go and see for ourselves what exactly it is they're doing, all of their technology and other up into things we set the work. And last it. Thank you. So mentioned, we took a lot of business meetings as well. We had the economic development partnership team joining us there. They manned the group where we had many people coming and talking to us and asking us about the value proposition and what North Carolina is and how they can be a partner with us in business and development. And we were there as a smiles and ready to meet and tell them, my North Carolina. Next slide, please. Other activities, stay tuned. We are working with our friends at Oceanic Network to provide 2 more offshore wind ready sessions coming this fall. I'm excited to share that we intended it to be in-person led training sessions, probably one here in Archie, and another one likely somewhere else in the Piedmont Village to drive and go across the state. And one of them on that has NCTOWERS. One more, that's it. And I'm gonna leave it at that because Peter, whenever he comes up on our schedule, will provide a much more in-depth update on the carbon plan. And I will move it about a long time and happy answer. Thanks.
Any questions for Jennifer? Thank you for that report, Jennifer.
Do we know anything about the U.S. Forged Rings plans, potential for engaging them to come to North Carolina?
Can't speak to anyone. All I can say with any kind of from being, yeah. Every city is a story, but in our support range showing up with the force stats, right?
Any other questions for Jennifer? Comments? Any of our online folks? Let's check.
Thank you all.
I don't see any raised hands online, so thank you, Jennifer. All right, we're going to invite Peter Ledford to come and present a carbon plan update. Peter is the Clean Energy Director for the Office of the Governor. And he has presented previously on the plan and it has been updated, so he's going to share that information with us this morning. Thank you, Peter.
All right, I got asked if I had transition to my slide. I can't even take the photos. I'm here to talk about the carbon plan update for the police commission.
in this year, and they're going to ask the Utilities Commission to approve this process. They're going to do some onshore transmission work. They're going to continue to look at what's going on in other states across the Eastern Seaboard. Next year, what they're going to do is they're going to finalize the RFE. They're going to issue it, and then they're going to receive the result. And all of this is going to roll into 2026 when they're going to report all of this back to the Police Commission. And that's going to allow 2027 to 32 more further actions. So won't this actually slow some things down? You know, Duke is looking at a 2033 in-service date for the first block, 2034. And we're hearing from developers that it can actually come on sooner if there are the proper market conditions. So some people definitely think so. One of the more notable organizations that up and said we need quicker is North Carolina Utilities Commission. So for those of y'all who have not dedicated significant years of your life to practicing law before the Utilities Commission, first of all, I'm jealous of you. But secondly, the public staff is the ratepayer advocate for North Carolina. They are a state agency who is charged with looking out for the using and basically, I'm a Duke Energy ratepayer. They power my house, but I'm not going to get involved in the utilities. The public staff is designed to represent all of North Carolina's customers and these proceedings before the Utilities Commission. So traditionally, the public staff is really cost. They want everything cost. They are very concerned about reliability, but now we have House Bill 951 and we need to be concerned as well. So the public staff made this filing that said that it is imperative for Duke to proceed with the development and issuance of the RFE as soon as possible instead of waiting until 2025. In essence, they make the argument that the type of structure that Duke is proposing doesn't require commission approval. Duke can go ahead and do this on their own. And Duke actually said, or public staff spoke for Duke in this filing, that they don't object to that. So something to make note of there. The public staff went on to just really stress the importance of the urgency inherent in meeting the emission reduction goals set out in House Bill 951. We've got to be reliable, we've got to do the modeling, but we can move forward with the receipt of key information necessary to examine the role of offshore wind in North Carolina's resource portfolio.
Excuse me, Peter, can you speak into the mic so our online hearers can hear the conversation? Thanks.
Sorry. The good news is I'm almost done because I'm sure everybody online is bored. So what's next with the carbon plan proceeding? So if you wanted to go speak publicly to the Utilities Commission, sorry, you missed your chance. Those hearings were last month. We don't know if there's going to be an order on the public staff's motion regarding offshore wind. Sometimes the commission will issue an order, but sometimes they'll also just kind of hold off on something. I mean, I've seen them hold off for years on certain things, but hopefully not on this. But in terms of the next steps that are really set out, at the end of this month, all of the interveners are going to be filing expert testimony. Interveners are the parties to the proceeding that are not Duke, basically. So environmental organizations, offshore wind developers, solar developers, trade associations, all of those folks will be filing their testimony at the end of the month. In June, the Utilities Commission is going to hold what's called a technical conference. This is not like a hearing where the lawyers are cross-examining witnesses, but this is an opportunity for the Utilities Commissioners to basically say to a witness, I don't understand what you're talking about. Can you explain it to me in English? So it's that sort of proceeding. Duke will file rebuttal testimony at the beginning of July, and then second half of July, the expert hearing begins. The expert hearing is going to take a few weeks. The commission has already said that they've got 3 weeks set aside for this, and if it goes longer than that, it's going to be really complicated because they got other business to do, and it's going to be a whole big thing. And they've been very clear to all of the parties that they want this to be as quick as possible because on December 31st, they have to issue an order. This is required by law that they have to issue an order by the December 31st of every even year. So the commission's under a time crunch as well. So I'm sure y'all are glad that I am finally done, but I would be happy to take any questions that y'all might have.
Madam Chair, if I could, Peter, nice job. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to offer maybe a little bit of additional context. To a certain extent, North Carolina is a little bit of a victim of its own success, right? How many years in a row we've been identified the #1 state for business? Chris Chung certainly knows. And Chris, I'm sure you're aware of, in a far better way than I am, all of the companies that have expressed interest in coming to the state. It is not uncommon at all for us to hear from tech companies, other manufacturing companies, that they need firm load or firm service. They'll have a load of hundreds of megawatts to over a gigawatt. Now, what that means doesn't matter, but what it means relative to the system today, I think does matter. And so just for context, between the two Carolinas, we operate a system of 35 owned gigawatts of generation. So when you have one customer come to you and say, we want to site a data center in your jurisdiction and we need a gigawatt just for ourselves, that underscores the challenge that we as a state face, because we have all this huge influx of interest and jobs, which is great for us. But again, it just underscores the challenge that we face as a state in trying to figure out how to serve that load in a way that is as reliable as it's always been, but also acknowledging that that's certainly my perspective. And I think, you know, if the commission issues an order and directs us to proceed with that process more expeditiously, presumably that means that we get some certainty in a more expeditious manner, which I think is good for the industry, but it's also good for us and all of the customers of the Carolinas.
There was one part you added at the end, and I was feeling so excited about your comments, and you said, if the commission issues an order. So,
Yeah, so and we can go deep on this, and, you know, Peter's the lawyer, I'm an engineer, so, you know, I struggle when it comes sometimes to some of the legal stuff, but we generally are not in a position to proceed on major investments without authorization from the Utilities Commission. And so ultimately, the decision on the carbon plan order is up to the Utilities Commission. And anything that would be required in order to affect that decision in the near term by way of gaining additional information is something that the Utilities Commission would generally direct us to do. And so that's kind of where we are. I think we're expecting an order on this particular issue pretty soon, in fact.
Yeah, the commission has to issue an order on this by the end of the year. But if the commission waits until the end of the year, there's literally no way Duke can do anything in 2024. So the question really is whether they're going to issue an order. And it sounds like there's some chatter that they are going to do an expedited order on this specific.
Any other questions or comments for Peter? Peter, I do have one question. Do we have any idea whether Total has suggested any plans, or do we know any plans of Total Energy concerning the anticipated increased load requirements?
I was thinking that the Total representative snuck out, but she didn't. So I'm gonna punt again.
Jen, sorry, to put you on the spot.
She needed coffee.
Okay. Alright. Yes, yeah, thanks for the question. We were certainly pleased to see the 2,400 megawatt of offshore wind added. And, we are, it's helpful for us to see that there is that commitment. One of the things that was mentioned previously that is a key for us is just the ability to continue our activities now and not slow down or wait 2 extra years. So I think this goes right in line with everything that's been discussed recently. One of our key targets is the 2032 start construction timeline for the Investment Reduction or Inflation Reduction Act. And with that, we would need to start doing surveys in the next year that would allow us to prepare a construction and operations plan. In order to do that, I don't have exact numbers, but we're in a ballpark of $30 to $40 million potentially a year for us to do those surveys and to create a construction and operations plan. And if we were to wait until 2026, an order from 2026 to be able to have the certainty that allows us to do that, then we are not definitely, but certainly putting at high risk the ability to meet that 2032 deadline. So it's our hope that we have the certainty that we need in the next that allows us to keep moving and do those surveys next year. We have done a lot of our, well, the only surveys we've done, which have been really tiny, we've done in conjunction with Duke Energy. It's yet to be seen if we would do those in conjunction with them, but that's, for us, it makes sense to continue working together on these activities for the Carolina Long Bay, these areas. So I'll stop there, but happy to take any questions.
Well, I think some of that also just gets to, so in order to qualify for the tax credit, you gotta start construction. 2032, working backwards from that, when does the commission need the order? That's how the certainty that it needs to spend that money to get to the certainty that it needs to, that they're not going to get stuck all over the bag on all of this. And then also develop the workforce, figure everything out, get the jobs, get manufacturing facilities built, all of that stuff that's associated with building this industry.
Ellen, do we have a microphone that other folks in the room who have comments or questions? One for Susan. Got a comment from Susan, and I could read it, but I don't like for our executive director of economic development too.
I was just gonna add on to some more comments about companies seeking reliability and cost concern when they're looking at considering it for a location. The other thing they're asking about us about early on is that source of power renewable? Because they have sustainability goals of their own. So we're seeing that as well.
Yeah, we get that question as well, routinely. The thing that I'll share is, I mean, obviously we know that wind turbines don't generate electricity when the wind's not blowing, and solar panels don't generate electricity when the sun's not shining. Storage technologies are expensive, not quite robust enough from a technology perspective. So one of the things that we're getting tough questions from the tech companies in particular. We want cheap power, we want always on power, and we'd love for it to be quote unquote clean. That's sort of like the holy grail, right? And so, we're engaging in those same conversations and we're hearing that same thing. And obviously the way that their electricity is generated matters, and it obviously matters to us too. So we're spending an awful lot of energy, figurative energy, sort of think about how do you meet that demand in a way that satisfies their own ESG aspiration.
Thank you for that question, Susan, or comment. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Peter. We appreciate that update. And while we don't have a break schedule, we are going to take a 5-minute break so that we can adjust some things technically. If you would, please mute your microphones.
Right. Do you need somebody to?
Yes. I want to see if this works.
So what time are your meetings? Two minutes, because you can see that time. Okay. Oh, because we can take. I guess I can unmute myself and text the audience that way, right?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, we can rate it.
All right, let's try it.
Josh, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself and then?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Wait, let me turn my audio on.
Oh, I see.
Can you speak,
Yeah,
Josh?
yeah, I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's like just some. Can you do it one more time?
That's me. So,
Good.
okay, perfect. Yes, ma'am.
One second. Dropping stuff. Sorry, yesterday the shop didn't give me power strips, so I had to like come and try to fix everything this morning before 9:30.
And the time change, so
Yeah.
it's just like 9:30.
Well,
Crazy.
I think yesterday not being able to come after 5, like, because I figured that out around 4. So I was like, if I leave now, it'll be too late. So I just set everything up and so I'll come in the morning and just be waiting outside.
We do these every quarter it's something.
Okay.
Something happens every.
Yeah. Usually how it goes. Yeah. Oh, you can start speaking. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm coming up as you're going. Can you keep going? Go ahead.
Good morning. And so to bear with us a few more minutes as we adjust our technical.
Try another. Sorry.
1, 2, 3.
I reset. So what? Yeah. So reset the board. Just had to get it back.
All right, thank you very much. Can you, everyone hear me? All right? Yeah, so, new for corporation. Gonna give you, start with a little overview for those of you who may not know what nuclear is. So Nucor is actually the largest steel producer in the United States. We manufacture about 1 million tons. And so largest recycler. in North America. We recycle up to, and that's our raw material feedstock. Last year we had about $35 billion. We've got over 30. Is in well, so we're very vibrant, very excited. Bringing it a little closer to home, actually our corporate office. The manufacturing sector. Like no, building. I'll produce required license. About 300. Hopefully. Trusted private. Last. Rebar. So, before where we got started, back when in 1997, our first steel mill was at South Carolina, corporate office. Since 60s. They will be up. What's very unique. Pretty smoke. I worked for U.S. Steel for 40 years. Spent the first half of my career in the great steel industry. This is where you're taking raw materials dug out of the earth. Steel. What Nucor does is we recycle steel, recycle cars, buildings, melting that in into beams, oil, heat, plates, all across the type of Nucor. Component. Talk about wind energy, and the green economy is pretty offshore wind, 1 gigawatt. We're excited about offshore. About the Bottom picture where you have. This is, side, one of the scroll. Europe. Average diameter is about 10 meters. As we require in the US. It's equivalent to size of turbines. Like, I'm very cool. Heavy, snow attachment. So one of our latest announcements. So the power. It is capable. Steel plate, steel plate. So we are very responsible. Why? Even though you see a little bit of that, all one of the reasons you gotta get about line up, everything is all kind of offered. Important for health. All variations. So massive. It filled out many find out water monopile product. Crazy. They ERI. These companies know how to build power. They have to find water. Cooperative.
How about that? Well, it said unmute me. I didn't know I got muted.
Well, no, it's this stop working, so we were trying to see if we could pick up the sound.
Okay.
via the other one.
All right. No, it kind of stalled.
There we go.
All right, we get one? So basically, when we talk about 30 gigawatts by 2030, everyone knows that's not going to happen. But one of the most interesting things, takeaways from last week at IPF that Jennifer mentioned at the conference there, even with the stall or the pullback by some of the projects by Ørsted and some of the contracts in New York, the states are still kind of resetting, recalibrating, and re-auctioning these lease areas. So the states are all in. 30 gigawatts isn't going to happen in 2030, but they really think that it's going to be more like 45 gigawatts by 2040 or something in that range. So Nucor is 100% behind that build out. We want to see the fabrication and the supply chain build out that is very, very hesitant. We talked to all the fabricators, all the energy developers. The energy developers only have a pipeline of 1 or 2 projects here, and it's between different states. States have incentivized different manufacturing build outs. So there really needs to be more collaboration amongst the states and more collaborations between the developers and the fabricators to see this supply chain build out with certainty, because it's got to be de-risked somewhere along the lines, either financially or other. So like I said, we've invested a lot in the industry. We'll continue to do so. And we're just excited to see the rest of the supply chain, the gap between steelmaking, fabrication, installation, see that build out, and see what we can all do collaboratively to make that happen. So that's all we got. Any questions, comments, criticisms?
Thank you for that presentation. I'm happy to hear that you all have such a low carbon footprint. And I just have just a curiosity about the model that you have in using the scrap. So when we look at the build out of what would be needed to really support where we want to be, just to get to 30, like much less 40.
Yeah.
Do you all see any need to vary that model where you're depending just on scrap? Do you have other plans for expansion, or you see that there's scrap to go to the moon?
Yeah, so we have a lot of smart guys studying that every day, and we have projections through 2045, 50 as to where that raw material, where that scrap will come from. And there's other technologies that we're investing in that are not necessarily scrap based, but it's say electrolysis of iron ore directly into pure iron. So like chemically process it. There's other raw material inputs called like direct reduced iron. That's also, we've invested a lot in that. We like to talk about it in terms of circularity. And so not only is the scrap recycled and become new and repurposed, but also on the energy side, we happen to be one of the largest consumers of electricity in the US. And so when we talk about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, where our power is generated, how it's generated, gets scored against us. So when we talk about renewables and when we go to locate a plant like the new one, the $4.5 billion plant in West Virginia, part of the attraction there was their commitment to supply enough renewable power for that facility. We're also investing in other unique technologies in small nuclear reactors, both fission and fusion. We've got investments in those spaces. Some people call that renewable, some people don't. We won't get into that debate today, but in terms of raw material, we're completely satisfied that we'll have the inputs, the raw material inputs to continue to generate the green steel that's needed going forward.
Any other questions or comments? Mark?
Yeah, just a question. I want to make sure I'm thinking about the math right. So facility Northern Kentucky, Brandenburg, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
You said that it was capable of 1.7 million tons.
No, it's a $1.7 billion investment to make 1.3 million tons per year.
So like 5 gigawatts worth of tower.
Per year.
At that one site per year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there won't be enough fabrication for that. You know, we estimate probably 300,000 to 500,000 tons a year would go from Brandenburg into monopiles. And then we have Hertford where we can supply the steel to the towers, and we could do another 500,000 tons of steel from Hertford into the tower manufacturing. So in terms of steel constraints, there really aren't any. The biggest bottleneck is in between. And we're talking all the fabricators on that. So but yeah, Duke's one of our biggest suppliers of electricity. So keep it coming.
Christmas card list.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
In addition to preparing our properties to be, are there any other things that ideally you would like to see North Carolina doing to help support this industry?
Yeah, so the marshaling is one component, and something like Radio Island would be great for that. There's also some adjacent properties to our Hertford facility that's right on the river. And that would be prime real estate for development for a towers or forged ring factory, for instance. And we're looking at acquiring some of that land. And then the big question is always permitting, wetland mitigation. I mean, all these heavy manufacturing sites have to be on the water because of the logistics of shipping these massive things out to sea. So it's critical. When you look at timelines, you know, we talk about 2032 for the IRA kind of deadline. It's not a hard deadline, but it's the one that most people recognize. It's what they've committed to. It can be extended, but that's just not enough certainty to invest $500 million for a tower plant or $1 billion for a monopile plant without a partnership between federal, state, energy developers and manufacturing to put that capital stack together to know that you're going to have at least 5 years isn't enough. You need 10, 15, 20-year horizon to really amortize the massive cost to build that. It's not like you build a monopile factory and then turn it into like a rebar factory. Just, it's too big, it's massive, it's crazy.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for facilitating our visit to the tour that we had last month. It was great. We had some of the economic development partnership and other partners in the group, and not in the group who were able to come and see your operations there. It was really great.
Yeah, it's always fun to bring people through a steel mill for the first time because it really does blow you away. I mean, it's just lots of sparks and noise and liquid metal pouring out.
A lot different than my college days and visiting General Motors Forge factory.
Okay, yeah.
Similar operation,
Right.
but not quite the same.
Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're gonna welcome Greg Rudolph, also known as Rudy. Rudy is business development manager at Solara. His role, Greg, Rudy. It's focused on providing quality geofuels to assess key factors, using cutting edge technologies, innovative approaches that prohibit risk, minimize environmental footprints, and ensure value. So we're excited to have Rudy representing Solara here. This is one picture.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see you again. We saw each other last week. We got our beignet quota reached, so mission accomplished there. The purpose of this presentation is going to talk about that kind of next step, which is developing a ground model using geotechnical and geophysical data to develop things such as where do the wind turbines go, where does the export cable corridor lie, and also goes into things that Frank talked about is how to it goes into the design of the monopiles, design of blades. All that is based on this kind of a next step. So I'm going to talk about what goes into that next step, and then talk about the timeline on how important the next step is in the overall timeline of the whole entire project. I promised Jennifer these slides wouldn't be too salesy, so I got a couple salesy slides to start with. After that, I promise I'll get into the revenge of the nerd stuff. So yeah, Somera, we even though we're a young company, we sort of stand out in the kind of survey world. We have a very high commitment to minimize our carbon footprint, and we're really big on what's called innovation. As you see in this slide, real quickly, we've gone to 0 to over 200 employees worldwide, and our main offices are based out of Glasgow and what's called Aberdeen, Scotland. Our U.S. office is in Houston. We have offices in Taiwan and Singapore, and we've done offshore wind throughout all these regions: Europe, APAC, Americas, and one of the smaller dots, our smaller satellite offices, is in Swansboro, North Carolina, and that's me. So again, kind of who we are, some of the things that, again, that we kind of pride ourselves on. We're ISO certified, which stands for International Organization of Systems. This is kind of a big deal. This is basically a kind of international certification of our quality management system, environmental management system, and health and safety management system. It sounds boring and benign, and you think you just do it on Monday or something like that. But it's to work internationally, you have to have all these systems in place. All the paperwork has to be controlled. If it's changed, you have to get board approval. And these are onshore policies and offshore policies. So this is very powerful. I mentioned our kind of commitment to reducing carbon. We are one of the companies that signed a carbon pledge, and that's a big deal. That's a kind of three step thing. One is to we catalog all of our carbon use onshore, offshore. Even when I travel airplanes, they actually catalog that. So it's like that kind of a granular. Then we have a commitment to reduce carbon by 2030, and if we don't do that, we have a plan to offset that. So again, we're innovation, carbon. So and last is our kind of people. I said, even though we're kind of a young company, the people we have are very long in the tooth, as they say, experience, decades and decades and decades. So kind of how do we do this? Vessels are two kind of biggest vessels. I love this title. It's the first one, the Vasa, Gorgeous. So it's a DPG is a fancy buzzword for positioning. So as you know, the boat's doing this in the water, and you want the data to not do that. So that's that, and that vessel is used for geophys, geotech, and environmental survey scopes, seismic work, UXO, and we lease our vessels. There's a lot of good things about that I could get into later. And then our second lease a vessel that we just I came on board this year, and we're retrofitting it, making it again energy efficient, things like that. Is the Ocean Marlin, and you see the same thing. The main addition on that one, we can see an acronym here, WRV. That stands for World Class ROV. There's different categories, and world class is obviously the ruler of the world. So this vessel is going to be sailed over to the U.S. Later on this year, and we'll probably stay here for a series of campaigns. And then, so what do we do with this vessel, especially in the geophysical world? And this is what I like to talk about probably the most, the more revenge of the nerd stuff. So we have a thing on these vessels called a multi-beam, we call it echo sounder. And what that does, it gets this C4 elevations and backscatter. And why do you need to understand that? Well, as it says, you need to understand the geology of the C4, to look where these kind of shoals are, reefs. It also confirms objects on the C4 as well, boulders, archaeological features, and also it provides a datum to hang other data. And some of that other data is what we call sub-bottom profiling. So again, what we're doing here most of the times is where I'm insonifying the water. You kind of take that word around parties and impress people. So basically, you know, the sort of frequency of the sound wave, you could do a higher frequency and it could bounce off fish, or you could lower the frequency, get a lower frequency wave, and it could penetrate at the bottom, and you could see what's sort of underneath the bottom. And that's what the sub bottom profiler does. But it doesn't have an elevation component, right? So it sees the C4, but you got to put an elevation on it. So again, you tie it back to the multi-beam, and you could say that reflector, which is a geologic unit, is exactly 40.28 feet below sea level. So again, and this is a very key a tool in the ground model. A side scan sonar, you've probably seen this on a boat. Again, it's not taking elevations; it's kind of measuring the reflectance of the signal back. It could help you identify the sediment texture of the C4, mud or sand, geomorphic features, sand waves, and add things like shipwrecks, UXOs, cultural resources. And now sort of our last one is not really sound. It's a magnetometer. And again, this is to also see on the surface and below the surface ferrous objects. Again, when you're looking for kind of UXOs, right here is the go-to tool. And with all these tools, the vessels and sensors, we sort of have four line items in the offshore wind space: uncrewed and remote. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. A characterization, which again helps develop this ground model for the wind field route of development for the export cable corridors. And then a lot of our services also relate to support services, helping the trenching of the cables that go either on top of the seabed or probelow, and we'll send a ROV down there to verify that the cable's being placed to a proper spec. So again, we've worked all around the world, and we've sort of helped in this sort of ground model to a financial at the final investment decision a model, and so sort of to get to the heart of the matter, you could basically look at the life cycle of a offshore wind project into three functions: development expenditures, capital expenditures, and OPEX, operation expenditures. And you see the life cycles on the X and the annual spend, hypothetically. on the Y. And, normally where, we come in is this kind of first, step here, and then eventually it leads that to the FID. And obviously the most expensive in all this is fuel and the water, capital, and then operations. But again, what's sort of been kind of intimated here is that the development expenditure, even though it's the least, it's probably one of the most important, because it goes into everything like we talked about, where you're going to put the turbines, all everything like that. And if you do the front end hasty, you're going to dramatically impact the CapEx and the development X. So we've seen Europe, that because the ground model was developed hastily, it was over engineered, and they actually made the monopiles almost too thick, and they could have shaved off a millimeter around the monopile, and that would save the project $73 million. And that little extra expenditure on the ground model phase would have helped them in the long run. We're seeing some of the export cables are failing every now and then because of thermal issues. And again, that's based on possibly inadequate analysis of the ground model. So, so there you go. So the kind of alternative model is to kind of do the geophysical geotech surveys collectively without pausing and stopping and all the things we've been kind of talking about in the sphere. Spend a little bit more, as you see, on the kind of development phase, and you can almost guarantee, for the reasons I just talked about, to lower your CapEx costs and also lower the operation and maintenance costs. Because once you build a project, if it's built wrong, then your operations are also going to be wrong. So another important component of developing the ground model and doing all the good stuff up front is that it's quite possible you can get the first power earlier as well. So I know it's been talked about here is like having that confidence for the Duke and Total to make that next step is really important, because it plugs into all this as well. So and lastly, we're again very much into kind of innovation, and a lot of this is in the ASV world. In UAV, ASV is AUVs are autonomous underwater vehicles. USVs is unmanned surface vehicles, and that's not a torpedo on the right. That's a survey platform. And so this technology, we really like it because it's greener, right? You're reducing carbon, and you're also risking the operation, because now instead of having 10 or 20 people on the vessel, you could do this from a computer almost. And this is this technology has been around for a long time in the kind of military world, but now it's available commercially, and you're going to see some very big advances of this here in the future. The floating wind farms proposed in like California or Oregon. If you've ever been out there, you can throw a football from the beach and you're in about 1,000 feet of water, by the time the football lands almost. I'm exaggerating. So our survey platforms, they can't emit sound and go all the way through that water column and get the data to the specs that we need. So we have to send UAVs down there. So you're going to see a lot of UAV work in the United States on the Pacific side, and the Gulf of Maine will likely. So we're really keen on that, and we have a UAV project in the Northeast right now as well. It's also good to use these platforms because they're smaller, so they can get around the monopiles and get in between a lot more nimble than a surface vessel. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions on that, and appreciate all your time.
Thank you, Rudy. Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Rudy. This is a shelf life for your reports. In other words, you get the reports to your company, and they don't have so long, assuming you get things shipped down there.
Yeah.
So how long do they have to take action on what you give them?
I'll stare at Jen Banks to say like, how long does a shelf life? And a part of that, I mean, a couple of years ago, there were like companies were, you know what, we're gonna go out and collect the data ourselves without any commitment from the company and sell it, to the company, to down that, that's not a good, business model. But yeah, Jen, I want you to speak to kind of how long the data is good for, if you will.
So I don't have an exact number. It really depends on the type of information you have out there. And it depends on some projects where we're in a A that's very dynamic. And for that sort of thing, if you're trying to understand where the scan rates are, you need to go out and here. It's not quite as dynamic, shorter in our these areas. It's not just, you can't listen to something, that's for sure. We need something typically if it's less than 10 years old, depending on conditions, and the same goes for some of the wildlife data. There's an exhibition day on that as well, in terms of understanding what's there and is it still there.
Any other questions or comments, thoughts for wording? I mean, thank you so much for traveling.
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, at this time, we're going to break for lunch. 30 minutes is what we have live, but we do it for minutes. See you back. 11:45. believe that is one of the things that we're addressing in our letter. And, we know that that is a challenge for us as a state and developing our supply chain as well. So we plan to look to do whatever we can to encourage that predictability so that folks can plan appropriately. And we think North Carolina is a really viable option for investments. So any comments and thoughts, feedback? Jan?
I'll just say, sure. Since I'll call her Towers, and so I'm. Did have a question in terms of timing, so are you planning, I know Stacy, I don't know if I was just, we were talking about it today. Is it, when are we planning to submit this, are you waiting for official comments from us, or is it sort of ready to go?
Well, if you do want efforts, your input is certain, what is the deadline for submitting?
I believe it's in June, but I think the sooner it's in the record, the better, because other interveners and folks who are watching can utilize the content is in the docket itself to build their own cases and their material decisions going forward.
So this is a draft, and we are, that task force members, if you have any feedback, certainly we're open to reading that or making any adjustments.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I certainly support the efforts of the task force. I think it's probably appropriate for Duke Energy to abstain from providing feedback, only because we are obviously a central part of the deliberations that are ongoing. But certainly don't take that as disinterest in the effort.
Understood. It doesn't seem that we have much in terms of comments on the actual statement that was submitted. But we will allow an opportunity if you want to have further review to offer some comment before we submit it to. Any other thoughts or comments? We do know we have to capture our folks who are online. So you didn't make it out of the coast or other areas, various reasons that John just virtually. Not seeing any hands. Open mics. Okay. All right, well, with that, we do know we have some folks who are lined up to do some other business today here in Raleigh, and we're going to respect that time and we'll get you back. So no further questions, comments, or thoughts?
We need to affirmatively move forward on this statement, or
well, I do want to allow opportunity to offer some further comments if. Go ahead.
Thanks. I was just gonna say, we can just, let me reset a page. Next week. If we have any.
Just so we keep. Okay, I'm good with that, so we will say, one second, 1 week from today, is that give you that?
That's my plan, just so we looked at it, I just don't have formal and.
Okay. Something that time we. All right. Thank you so much for everybody for coming out today. This has been an abbreviated meeting, as you can tell, giving you your afternoon back. I know you appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming. With that, our leader, well, August 8th, we will be in one sheets. And that will be the 7th, will be our day for convening in any extracurricular activities like visiting schools. And the reception will be on the 7th, but official meeting will be Thursday, August 8th. So look forward to seeing everyone there. That's gonna be an exciting speaker for us. We have a